today is all about how you actually do that assessment. What are the mechanics of it? So we've gone through the philosophy of the safe system, made sure we're on the same page. We've done a lot of work to ensure that everybody's consistent on what's exposure, what's likelihood, what's severity, and what are good sort of recommendations and treatments, and how do you think about those in the one network moving in place context to make sure they're meaningful and helpful to the project team. So we're sitting pretty nicely at the point where we can launch in and show you how to fill out the assessment and put some scores to it, and then give you all the information you need and your site, and send you out to do a mock safe system assessment, which is the big assessment task for this course. Okay, so this one, we want to just point you at some different guidelines available for safe system assessments, so you can have something to refer back to if needed. We want to show you how to complete the safe system assessment matrix, and a few of you will be quite familiar with that, I think, and we'll find out shortly what people's experience might be with safe system assessments. And write a safe system assessment report. So I'll show you the elements of that, and we like to categorize our treatments into primary or supporting, and I'll explain what those are and give you some insights into that. Now, Max, before I say let's have a look at a poll, is there a poll for today, or is that for another?
There is actually. It might be a good time to launch that one. So yeah, let me get it up and going. Yeah, no, this one is an actual poll to gauge where people are at. Over to you, Max. So the question is, what has been your involvement with safe system assessments? And there's a few options you can select. Nothing. Safe system what now? I've heard the term but don't know much more. I've had one done on my projects. I've done one, or right at the opposite end of the spectrum. I live, breathe and eat safe system assessments. And if you're filing in that, you might get a call from Safe System Solutions to All right, so everyone's participated, so I'm just going to end the poll there, and I'll share the results with everyone so you can have a look. Ken, if you want to have a chat through. Yeah, no, that's good. It's a nice sort of bell curve forming there, and most people in that heard the term, don't know much more, and that's fine. That's good, in fact, because I'm going to sort of go through the basics of it. A few people have had them done on projects, and a handful of people have been involved in them, so that's good. And you're a little advantage there, but others will be catching up very shortly. So thanks, Max. Let's stop sharing that, and I will keep ticking along. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, get my pen ready. So we had a really good discussion early on about the principles of the safe system and how New Zealand represents the safe system, and some really good sort of philosophical discussions to start with, and then we sort of honed it down to the roads and the roadsides, and then we really got into that other stuff. And we really spent a lot of time on that exposure, likelihood, and severity. And you'll see why it's so important shortly. The other thing we spent a good bit of time on was understanding the biomechanics of injury, and the speeds and the angles and the crash types and the forces that result, and the likelihood of death or serious injury. And these then coloured sort of charts was something I showed, and it wouldn't have made a huge amount of sense to you with the colours and the numbers if you haven't had any involvement in safe system assessment. But I just sort of planted the seed back then. I'm going to plant it here again, and then you'll see shortly exactly why that makes a lot of sense when we start to try to put scores to safe system assessments. And there's lots of different
bits of information coming through around the speeds and impact angles and what sort of deemed generally acceptable within tolerances and not. And so you've got a few references there. So I'll put those into the front of this module as well, just so it's easy reference again, because they're so important as you start to now go and think about exposure, likelihood and severity at a specific site, and then imagine crashes or predict crashes, and then you're going to be going back to these to get an idea of whether those speeds and angles and road users is it within an envelope where generally thinking is going to be okay from a death and serious injury perspective or not. But what we're going to focus on is how to do this safe system assessment now. And the safe system assessment framework is the document that Austroads produced released in late 2016. And Colin Brodie was the project manager for this one. I was on a working group for it. And it was done by a variety of authors. There were a fair few people involved. And it's really helped us in the sense that we now have something we can utilize as a risk assessment methodology that has a very clear sort of safe system lens over it. But a few things to note about the safe system assessment framework, the Austroads one, is that they point out there that it is very scalable. And the ability to, you have the ability to do a safe system assessment on a small splitter island or something like that, all the way up to you could do a whole remote community, or you could do a mine site, and sort of everything in between. And there's also the ability to alter the depth of the assessment. So you can do a fairly light look at something using the safe system assessment framework, but you can go into some really, really intense, deep investigations into how well it aligns with safe system principles. So it's versatile, and versatility can be very good, and there's good ways to use that. Recognized in there that you want to understand a lot of the project context, and then you get into this thing we call the safe system assessment matrix, and that's what we're going to spend a lot of time on today. In there's also those other elements of the safe system associated with the people, the vehicles, post-crash care. And then we have treatments. So we come up with things to improve alignment with safe system principles, and we start to categorize those. Max, is there a question there?
Sorry, my internet just dropped out, so I may have missed something.
Oh, no. Oh, good.
Everything was okay here, it looks like.
Yep, we're happy.
My chat has completely blanked itself. So if someone did ask a question, would you mind repeating that? Apologies for the inconvenience. I'll let you carry on, okay?
Thanks, Max. Okay, so let's jump in and have a look at a few of these things. Actually, no, before we do that, I'm going to point you at some other guidelines. Now, there's some Victorian guidelines, there's some South Australian guidelines. Now, the reason these have sort of emerged is because the Austroads document here, is a really good foundation, but not a lot of safe system assessments had been done. Myself and a few colleagues have been doing things that we called safe system audits, which were slightly different to what came out of this, and some others around the place were playing around with different ideas. This one was sort of put forward, but it hadn't really been tested out a lot. And so as we started doing more and more, we found little things that didn't quite work, or things that didn't have good clarification. And then there was sort of all of the sort of policy perspective as in when you would do safe system assessments and the like. So Victoria and South Australia have produced guidelines to cover off some of that. And those two documents are pretty much the same apart from the front cover. So there's good consistency there. New Zealand hasn't sort of released any specifics as yet, just sort of saying use the Austroads and good practice around that. We'll hopefully get Austroads to do a version 2 of the Safe System Assessment Framework to iron out some of those kinks, but for now we have some supplementary guidance. So there are 1 or 2 things in the Austroads guide that I don't recommend doing. I must teach something slightly different, and that's more aligned with what's in the jurisdictional guidance. And as you do more and more of them, you'll understand it just wouldn't make sense to quite do it the Austroads way. So the first thing you do, right, you've been asked to do a safe system assessment on a proposal, whatever it is, and they've said, right, gather the team together and off you go. Now, the first thing you want to do is gather that context of the project. What are they going to do? Why are they doing it? What are the speeds? What are the traffic compositions, turn movements? And Austroads helped you out a little bit with these prompt questions. So they're directly out of the Austroads Safe System Assessment Framework. And what you can do is you could send those to whoever you're doing the safe system assessment for, or you could have a workshop in sort of inception meeting and ask through all of these different questions. You're really just trying to get yourself up to speed on this project and your team, your safe system assessment team up to speed on the project so you're able to meaningfully undertake this. I'll often ask for background reports and different things just so you can have a flick through those and get some intel. So you've gathered yourself a nice understanding of the project, and then you start to do the assessing of the existing conditions. Now I'm going to jump you all the way to the end and show you what you're trying to produce, at least from the Safe System Assessment Matrix, and then I'll walk you through how you get there. But we're trying to produce some numbers around different crash types. And you see here what we have on the x-axis, we have crash types. We have run-off road, head-on, intersection, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, and then this other category. Okay, so there are crash types that present death and serious injury on New Zealand roads. And over on the y-axis, we've got the safe system alignment score or safe system assessment score. Now, the lower the score, the better in safe system assessment. The lower the score, the better. But what you can see there is that the red is the existing conditions. So everything is sort of referenced off that existing condition. And it's really important that you do that, existing conditions, because it's your baseline. It's where you start from. And then you can see there that we've got a proposal to change whatever that existing condition is to a roundabout, this one to a modified T intersection with signalisation, this conventional T with signalisation. And so you can start to immediately see there where you're getting benefit. The roundabout showing benefit for the run-off road for a particular reason. And head-on is down there, but maybe cyclists are faring worse with the roundabout. Anyway, I'm now going to walk you through how you would actually arrive at something like that. So this is the Safe System Assessment Matrix, and a matrix being a table, essentially. And you'll see there that the matrix of the table there has 3 rows. And the rows are exposure, likelihood, and severity. So that's good. Makes sense as to why we were talking so much about exposure, likelihood, and severity. And the columns are those crashes that I mentioned: run-off road, head-on, intersection, other, pedestrian, cycles, motorcycles. Now, a first important thing to understand is that these are crash types. Okay, these are the way in a crash reduction study or the like you would categorize or code a crash. So if a pedestrian is struck at an intersection, that's a pedestrian crash, right? Not an intersection crash. Okay? If a vehicle was to leave the road and hit a pedestrian or cyclist, it would end up in the pedestrian or cyclist category, assuming that the occupants of the vehicle were not injured in the run-off road event. So really thinking about it from who's the occupant that's going to be injured, and are they in the vehicle, and then what's the crash type. So even within this, if somebody was to leave the road at an intersection, within the bounds of the intersection, we'd still categorize that as a run-off road crash. It's assuming that when they left the road, that's where the injury has occurred. Okay, so what we're aiming to do is put a number in each cell of this matrix. And the numbers are between 0 and 4. So we want to put a number now for exposure to run-off road crashes between 0 and 4. And it says AADT. It's just a prompt in that one. AADT. Well, okay, we might have a road in the AADT. The annual average daily traffic is 1,000 vehicles a day. We can't put 1,000 there. So what we do is we go to our scoring reference sheet. And I've sort of reproduced it here. It's in the Road Safe System Assessment Framework. And it's got 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what we do is let's have a read of, say, 1 of 3 years. Volume of vehicles that might be involved in a particular crash type are high. Therefore, exposure is high. For run-off road, head-on, and other crash types, AADT is between 5,000 and 10,000 vehicles a day. For cyclists, pedestrians, and motorcyclists, crashes or crash types, volumes are between 50 to 100 units a day. So we've got some numbers now. And a 4 is above 10,000 or above 100 units a day for the vulnerable road users, 1,000 to 5,000. So if our road did have 1,000, it would have just ticked into the 2. Down there, we see that less than 1,000 ADTs are 1, and you basically have no pedestrians, no motorcyclists, no flow to get a 0 in exposure. So it's as simple as, if you have your AADT for this cell, just looking at your scoring reference sheet and going, yep, right, that's a 2. So the exposure one can be fairly clear cut if you're given the traffic volumes. So you can go through and just simply do that. A couple of little things to know. For intersections, we will add up the volumes. So if you did have that 2,000 and you had it crossed a road with, I don't know, 3,500, let's say, a larger road. Oh, struggling to write here. That goes to 5,000, 500. And so that actually has ticked it up to the next level there. So exposure on that would actually be a 3 there. 2 would be there unless there was something like a physical barrier in the median that you were very confident wasn't going to be breached by the vehicle composition. So really you'd expect it to have to be a concrete barrier in the middle. For a flexible barrier system, I'll still put it as just a very low likelihood of head-on crashes, because I know there could be something, a larger vehicle could go through there or the like, but it's just very low chance that will happen because the barrier will contain. But anyway, we'll get to that. So intersection you're adding, and then the pedestrians and cyclists especially, you rarely get that data. You ask for it. Do you have any pedestrian counts? Do you have any cyclist counts? And often they say no. Sorry, we don't. And then you just make a prediction, and you do the best you can in estimating, maybe gathering a good bit of information from your site visit. Maybe you know the area quite well, and you're just going to make a judgment call on that. And motorcyclists are sort of somewhere in between. Sometimes you get data, sometimes it's been collected. Sometimes you have to make a bit of judgment call, maybe just use 1%. 1 to 2% of AADT as a bit of a rule of thumb, unless it's a popular motorcycle route or you've got other data. And so you go through and you pop numbers in all of these. So you might see there, maybe a 4 and a 4. There you go. You've got all your lines. And with the exposure, you don't need to put a lot of effort into this if you're given the data, and you don't need to put a lot of just like commentary in that cell to explain how you got there. Because you say, traffic volumes were given and this is what they are, and it relates to a score of 2. Then we move on to likelihood. We say, okay, now we've got to put a score between 0 and 4 for the likelihood of runoff road crashes. Now, there are some dot points there to just start you thinking about things. Speed, geometry, shoulders, barriers, as it offsets, guidance, delineation, etc. And very much etc. because there's lots of other things, lighting, distance between, cities, if it's in the middle of nowhere and there's fatigue's likely to have kicked in. So what you do then in a safe system assessment is you start to dot point all these things that you're thinking about. You go, okay, it's relatively straight. Okay, speed's quite high. It's got really good sealed shoulders. Now the reason the barrier sort of sits in both categories, because leaving the road and hitting the barrier is a crash, and so there's a likelihood of crash because the barrier is there, but it really kicks in the severity one when we get down here. But trees are, there's some trees, but they're quite far off the edge line. There's really good guidance and delineation, and so you're taking all of this into account. The surface is really good. It's got really good crossfall or super elevation. So let's have a look at what these numbers are saying then in likelihood. So let's start with a 1. What does a 1 say? It is highly unlikely that a given crash type will occur. Well, that's not much help, is it? Okay, highly unlikely. Let's see if maybe a 2 helps us out. It is unlikely that a given crash type will occur. 3. It is likely that a given crash type will occur. We're really not getting a lot of help from this reference table. Okay, 4, we get a little bit more here. The likelihood of individual road user error leading to a crash is high given the infrastructure in place. E.g., high approach speeds to a sharp curve, priority movement control filtering, right turn across several opposing lanes, high speed. Okay, so we've got a bit more meat on that. A 0, there is only minimal chance that a given crash type can occur for individual road user given the infrastructure in place. Only extreme driver behaviour or substantial vehicle failure could lead to a crash. This might mean that, for example, 2 streams of traffic do not cross a grade or pedestrians do not cross a road. So I'm going to actually cross that out because this is one of those ones that I mentioned earlier. Crossed roads, that's picked up in there. So we very rarely, if ever, use a 0 for likelihood because we're trying to account for humans being humans and making mistakes. And so, there's crashes, unlikely, but are going to happen. We have done a scoring fact sheet on likelihood because it's a bit complicated. But the key thing to remember here is this is a relative likelihood, because if you took it as an absolute likelihood, everything will be unlikely because crashes are, in one sense, rare. So you've got to do this relative likelihood of what it's like out there on the New Zealand road network. I do reserve the 4 for some really inherent issues that are presenting there. If everything's generally, as good as we can think of it from a likelihood perspective, it'll sit in that usually 1 category. So likelihood is quite subjective. And we do ask that you document within the cell of the matrix lots of factors that have helped you arrive at your score. I'll show you examples of all this shortly. You make a judgment call on it. Now, I find some people, love this, and they're maybe road safety auditors are often really good at this, and they're listing heaps of things that they can see that are influencing the likelihood of a crash. It could be a see-through effect. It could be, misleading signage, or speeds, or sight distance issues, all sorts of things. So you've gone through and then you make your sort of judgment calls on all of this, and maybe you put a 2 for that as well, but head on, for some reason you've decided to go with a 1. Maybe there is a barrier of some description down the middle and some gaps. Intersection, you've decided to go a 3 as well on that one. You've put lots of justification in behind this. It's not just randomly chucking numbers down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You fill all those out. Then you put aside the exposure and the likelihood, and you simply look at, now a crash is happening. How bad is it going to be? How bad is it going to be? You go over to your severity, and it says, should a crash occur? So this would be a 0. Should a crash occur, there is only minimal chance it will result in fatality or serious injury to the relevant road users involved. This might mean the kinetic energy transferred during the crash are low enough not to cause a fatal or serious injury, or that excessive energies are effectively redirected or dissipated before transferring to the road user. Users may refer to the critical impact speeds for different crash types while considering impact angles and roadside hazards, barriers that are present. So this one is taking you to those charts and those tables and those figures. So this one still takes a bit of judgment. There's a bit of subjectivity to it, but you've got some much better reference data. Okay, and so immediately now, for those who couldn't work out why we were putting numbers to this, you can see how this is kind of going to help you. Now, remember, professional judgment required. You've got to look at this, and there is more and more research and things being published around this. So these might change, but for now, we're sort of using generally this 3, a 2, somewhere in there, a 1, a 0. But you're sort of making a bit of a judgment call on that. Hopefully that will help you out. We see there that a 1, should a crash occur, it is highly unlikely that it will result in fatality or serious injury to any road user. Kinetic energies are fairly low during the crash, or the majority are effectively dissipated before reaching the road user. That was said in the other one. What does that mean, effectively dissipated? Well, it means like a barrier system, absorbing a bit of the energy and redirecting the energy and dissipating the energy over time, right? rather than an abrupt stop. Or there's some cushioning of something. You know, there's a crash attenuator, a crash cushion on the approach to something. You know, it's absorbing energy or dissipating energy before it's hitting the occupant of that vehicle. A 2, it is unlikely. A 3, it is likely. And a 4, should a crash occur, it is highly likely that it will result in fatality or serious injury for any road user involved. So we look at the crash that we're predicting and we think about the speeds and the angles and the vehicles, the weights of the vehicles, or we think about the rigidity of the hazards, or the presence of the barrier and the flexibility of the barrier. And we're weighing all of this up in our mind and we're looking back at our charts and the like, and we come in here and maybe we make that a 2 as well, for example. Maybe we make this one a 4, and so on and so forth. Maybe the intersection one. And you continue to do that. Now you can see the prompts here: speed, 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 speed. Speed's going to be a big factor. But you have impact angles, you have presence of larger vehicles, more weight, you have different features that are absorbing and managing energy. So now we've sort of gone through, we've thought about this is all the existing conditions, and we've got numbers in, and we multiply these numbers. So we do 2 times 2 times 2. So for this one, we get a score of 8. And then for this one, we get also a score of 8. And for this one, we get a score of, what about 36, is it? And you keep doing that for all of them, and then you add up. You add up each of these crash type scores to get a final score out of 448. A score of 0 would be perfect alignment with safe system principles. A score of 448 would be the worst alignment with safe system principles. The projects you analyze are going to sit somewhere in between. Okay, so immediately there you've probably got some questions, or you're thinking, I'm not sure I quite understand this, but as always, you're going to get better at it once you do it a few times. And so that's what we're going to get you into doing. But I'm going to walk you through one again and show you a few things about it, and we'll be pausing for questions along the way. Max, is there anything that I need to deal with that's come up already?
There's a few questions just regarding how you would consider pedestrians. So if you were looking, say, adjacent a primary school, we just made this as an example, then you would have high volumes of young children within that area, and you could that could impact the way that you score both the likelihood and severity for that particular area. But I suppose the thing to consider is you are generally taking averages for the pedestrian population, no matter what your assessment is. So if you do have a particular concern that there is one vulnerable road user that is particularly vulnerable, certainly you can add that in as part of the assessment, but it is generally an average of everything that's within that assessment area.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point you make there about sort of factoring it into your likelihood as well. I mean, if it's going to be kids and they're going to be, they're a bit more likely to be involved in a collision. Same way if it's, you know, in the area where there's lots of bars and nightclubs or pubs and the like, you know, the likelihood's going to go up because you're going to have lots of intoxicated people around. So you can factor that certainly into this sort of stuff, into that likelihood especially. You can a little bit in severity as well. and understanding that some pedestrians are going to be more vulnerable, so they might you might slightly put up your severity score, but the average is important. Thanks, Max. So now here's an output of, here's an example sort of matrix that's been filled out. I don't expect you to be able to read that. Don't worry. There's other examples in the USB and the Moodle and the like. But you can see here that this is existing conditions. Couple of things to note. So you can see there's not too many words explaining the exposure because that's just the volume. And then looking at the reference sheet. But you can see here for likelihoods and dot points on things that increase and things that decrease. So you're actually dot pointing out things that made you want to make that score high, like a 4, and things that make you want to decrease the score. So you're showing, oh, those are the good things here, these are the bad things here, and you dot point those out. And you do the same for severity. What increases the severity and what decreases the severity? And then you're able to start to put your scores in. Now you can see here in this random one that I've snipped, there's a 2.5. Now we sort of discourage the use of decimal places, but if you must, you can go to a 0.5, but we don't want more precision than that. And the reason for that is there's just too much subjectivity to the assessment framework. And it's really, well, there's actually another advantage that we've discovered in not being more precise than that. And it's a bit like star ratings, for example, in that sense. But if people are playing around with very minor tweaks within a design, it's not enough to give you a 0.5 of a change. And so it kind of forces projects to go back to look at some fundamental changes, some things that are going to give step changes rather than just tweaks around the edges. So that's a sort of benefit we've discovered of the use of it. But when in the working group for this project, and I remember sitting there and the idea of using numbers had come up, and I was like, wow, we'll put numbers to this and we're going to give it to technical people. They're just going to run this off the cliff with numbers. And yeah, and that happened. We saw, assessments coming back to 2 decimal places and then flowing through to 3 or 4 decimal places in the multiplication. It was quite, it gave this like overly precise output, which is not really what it's about. If you looked at this in another sense, which was one of the other ideas, like we're just talking here about low risk, medium risk, high risk, very high risk, intolerable risk. Really. That's kind of what we're talking about. And everybody would be kind of comfortable with, oh, that's not enough to move it off high risk. But when we get to numbers, people get very excited. Oh, there's something we could do to, just maybe shave 0.01 of a number off that to get it, And so we don't want that. This is a broad brush look at alignment with safe system principles. So you can see there, the existing conditions is done, and you get this matrix, and it's filled out with lots of information. It's got a score down the bottom. It's got scores all on here. And so this one maybe is, this intersection. I think it actually, I'm not sure it was that one. Yeah, no, it is that one. So here we go. We've got a passively controlled intersection. It's got to give way there, sort of on a downhill curve. It's got some power poles. It's got a bit of a sidewalk footpath there. It's got some lighting, it looks like. Yep, the lighting there. It's got a big culvert drain thing within the vicinity, and trees and a bit of edge line, not much shoulder. But they're proposing a roundabout at that location. But they've got other ideas as well. So they're trying to work out which is the best for us to do. This roundabout, or maybe this modified T intersection. So a modified T being the main road sort of sweeps around and the side road T's in, signalized there. Or a conventional T intersection. So they're just trying to work out which is the best to do. So you're taking all of that into account. You've done the existing conditions, you've got lots of points out there, you've gone out, you've had a look at it as it is now before they've built anything, you've scored it up, you've justified your score nicely with lots of dot points, how you arrived at that. And then what you do is you copy that matrix, that table. You copy it and you paste it. And then you start altering it based on the design, the first design you're looking at. So you're looking at potentially the roundabout first. So you look at this roundabout design and you say, okay, now what's changing here? Obviously, we've got a different intersection control, but how's that impacting on some of these issues? And you start to cross out things that have disappeared. And you start to add in red or different color things that have now emerged. So you're adding bits and pieces here, you're crossing things out, and you're changing scores as you go. So you go through and you do that for all of them and you change your scores. Then you copy the, again, existing conditions, the original one, you paste it, you then modify it based on the next design you're looking at with crossing things out, adding new stuff in a different color. And you do it for the next design. And you do this for as many designs as you want. So you keep getting that existing conditions matrix and altering it. Get the existing conditions matrix and alter it. And then you're able to start to compare. And you can say at a total level, full say, the whole project, what's its safe system alignment? Okay, 118.5, 90 with a roundabout, 99 with a modified T signalized intersection, 105 there. So you can immediately see from that snapshot, the roundabout's going to perform with the highest alignment with safe system principles, then the modified T, and then the conventional T. And any of those things that they're proposing makes it better aligned with safe system principles than the existing conditions. You might want to graph that so people can see it that way. But then what people are really looking for, and you've already seen this once today, this is what they're looking for as an output. They want to see, okay, well, they want to see those overarching scores, but they want to see where this is coming from and what's improving and what's not. And then you don't stop there. Because for every one of those, we want to provide ideas. How can they get that down? So for each of their design options, you start to say, okay, you've proposed a roundabout and here's how it's looking and it's, improving in lots of things. It's making things worse for cyclists in this one. And so, here are some ideas of things you could do. Maybe a protected roundabout for cyclists, maybe diverting cyclists onto a shared path that doesn't go through that area. It could be anything, any ideas you want. But you're taking their design and you're saying, here's how you can alter it. This design, here's how you can alter it. Here's how you can alter it to get better scores. And for each of those ideas that you come up with, you categorize those into either a primary or a supporting treatment. Now, you wouldn't be calling them a non-safe system treatment, or you wouldn't be suggesting any of that. That's more there for terminology, I suppose. But you'll be basically saying either it's a primary treatment or it's a supporting treatment. Now, the most the most stuffed up thing that people do in their, the thing that they stuff up most is in their assignment is getting these categorizations wrong. And the biggest mistake usually is that people think that primary is like their number one treatment. Like, and I can understand why, because it's used the word primary. But what that actually is that Ostrodes has said these sort of things are primary treatments because they virtually eliminate the potential for fatal and serious injury crashes occurring associated with the foreseeable crash type or the crash type you're looking at. Virtually eliminate. So there could be multiple things that you could do that would do that. Or there might be none. You might not be able to come up with a primary treatment. So think of them less as this is my number one, and think of them as I'm reaching for treatments out of buckets, and one bucket's got primary and the other's got supporting. And you might want to take a few primaries and no supporting, or you might want to take, one primary and a few supporting, or you might want to take no primary and just all supporting. Okay, that's sort of the way you should think about these categorizations. And Ostrodes in the Safe System Assessment Framework actually lists a whole lot of treatments and whether they're primary or supporting to assist you. Supporting treatments, though, are all those things that we know improve road safety, but we don't expect to virtually eliminate the crash from occurring. And it doesn't change the ability for that primary treatment to go in the future. So really what we see supporting treatments are a lot of things like signs, line marking, lighting, signal phasing changes, opening up sight lines. And don't be confused to think that, okay, you're coming up to an intersection, you're analyzing an intersection, maybe there's car parking that's blocking sight lines, okay? If you remove that car park, you say, we're going to remove that car park to open sight lines up. So that issue is gone. And people really want to make that a primary treatment. It's not a primary treatment, okay? The reason it's not a primary treatment is because that sightline impediment was causing the potential intersection crash, right? By removing that, have you eliminated the potential for a fatal or serious injury from that intersection crash? No, you've made it less likely because it's people can see a bit further and the like. But somebody can still make a mistake, they can be distracted, they could misinterpret it, they could still enter that intersection, and we've still got that crash, okay? What you've done is you've helped out, but you're not virtually eliminated. A little rule of thumb I use is pretty much if you are not addressing the severity of the crash to within tolerable levels, it's not a primary treatment, it's a supporting treatment. And by no means are we saying they're bad. In fact, it's great. We need supporting treatments. We just want everybody to be clear that those primary treatments are the ones that are going to get us really close to that virtual elimination of fatal and serious injuries for that crash type. So examples of primary treatments are often things like roundabouts for passenger vehicles at intersections, raised pedestrian crossing points, things to lower vehicle speeds through pedestrian areas, and not just like a speed limit. Like a speed limit in its own right, even if you say put a 30 up, it would still be a supporting treatment unless it's got some local area traffic management or something physical there to actually ensure that vehicles are going those low speeds. Continuous barrier system, flexible barrier systems are in the primary category. I hope that sort of description makes a little bit of sense. Now, Max, I'll pause there and see if we got any questions at this stage.
No questions. I can pose you one, Ken, which I regularly get from clients and I think is worth sharing. But sometimes when you offer these recommendations, the client may come back and ask, okay, we want to go for your recommendation of, let's say, signalizing the intersection as a supporting treatment. And then they say, what will the score now be for that option?
Yep. So that one's a conversation to have with the client, because yes, you can do that. You can rescore. So you can now do another matrix with that and have that as an extra one. And so they will then get a gauge of how effective that will be. But obviously it's more work to be done. So think about that in quoting up safe system assessments or the amount of time you're allocating to do them.
That's right, because you've got 10 or so recommendations and they want you to update the scoring for each of those recommendations, and you've got 10 extra matrices to do, which is a lot of time. Is signalizing supporting? Angela's just asked, and yes, it's considered a supporting treatment. It doesn't virtually eliminate the chance of fatal serious injuries. People can still red light run, for instance, or just miss the signals altogether. But it does certainly improve the level of safety compared to an unsignalized or priority controlled intersection.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, generally we do say that. Occasionally we might actually drop it into this non-safe system because it reduces the ability for a primary treatment to be implemented, if you can directly see that. But I think we're now more advanced. That was used a lot more when we didn't think about raised signalized intersections and speed management through a signalized intersection. But so yeah, supporting treatment more, because it really addresses that likelihood. Okay, Max. Well, let's actually have a little pause there so people can have a stretch, fill up their water, their coffee, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. So have a stretch, have a break. We'll be back in 5 minutes to finish off talking about that and then give you your assignments, and then off you'll go. Is that all right, Max?
Thanks, Ken.
Okay. All good, Max?
All good, Ken. Just typing away some answers. I thought I'd get my apple done in time, but it's too big an apple. So sorry if you hear me crunching.
All good, all good. Okay, well, let's keep ticking on this. So we've got primary and supporting, and we will, I think we will definitely have time to bring up the Austroads Safe System Assessment Framework and show you and point you at where you can find that categorization, different treatments, how they'd be categorized, and also whether they impact on exposure likelihood and severity as well to help you out. So we'll show you that shortly. Be a good reference tool for you. But of course, the Austroads thing doesn't cover everything, so you've got to know how to categorize stuff if you weren't able to find it in there. Okay. So you've done, so we've taken you through how to do the matrix and get scores out of that and categorize treatments. There are these other prompt questions that you answer in a qualitative sense. You're not scoring these. You're just writing answers and ideas and thoughts and things that you've discovered. And these questions are again set by Austroads, but you could ask other questions if you think of good questions to ask yourself, but they're categorized in road users, vehicles, and post-crash care. And they are road users likely to be alert and compliant? Are there factors that might influence this? What are the expected compliance and enforcement levels? Alcohol, drug, speed, road rules, driving hours? And what is the likelihood of driver fatigue? So you can see you're starting to think about the road user from the environment and what you know about the area. Sometimes you talk to the highway patrol people, the police about what they know about the area. And that helps with the next question, which is, can enforcement activities be conducted safely? And you might also be thinking about, with the new design, can enforcement be conducted safely? Are they going to inhibit that through addition of one thing or another? Are there special road users, entertainment precincts, elderly, children, on-road activities, distraction by environmental factors, so commerce, tourism, risk-taking behaviours? So you're sort of asking these generic questions, you're thinking about things, you're talking to people. Obviously, make sure with whoever you're doing the assessment for is comfortable for you to talk to different stakeholders. But you have these discussions. I mean, there's a wonderful, it's been absolutely wonderful in some of the safe system assessments to roll out, put out a big roll plot of a new proposed duplication of a road and stand around with the police there and say, well, how are you going to go doing your enforcement activities here? What else could be done to help out? And they're a wealth of information, and they're thinking about, oh, okay, well, we would love to put our number plate recognition vehicle up there. So if you could, alter where those barriers are so it could fit in there nicely, that would be great. And then, because we could use this area down here is where we're going to put the booze bus and or we're going to pull people over, and then what, they're asking, oh, and what's this, and how does that work? And oh, could you widen that a bit there? And for no extra dollars, essentially in your $150 million duplication project, you've created a wonderful purpose-built facilities for enforcement. So we're seeing there that it's a holistic system that we're trying to do here, not just the pouring of the concrete and the putting up of the barrier. And then you're into the vehicles now. What is the level of alignment with the ideals of safer vehicles? And that's a very sort of blue sky question, isn't it? It actually is kind of in there for when you're analysing a remote community or a mine site or something that's sort of got vehicle safety features and choices of vehicles and the like. So when you're doing an individual intersection or a road upgrade, it can be pretty sort of hard to put anything, but that's okay. You've pondered it, you've thought about it. You're going, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. But a lot of the time you're putting not applicable on that one. Are there factors that might attract a large number of unsafe vehicles? So that could be whatever it is, some sort of quarry or something that you're thinking about in the area. Is the percentage of heavy vehicles too high for the proposed existing road design? Is the route used by recreational motorcyclists? Are there resources to detect non-roadworthy, overloaded or unregistered vehicles and remove them from the network? Can enforcement of these be conducted safely? And has vehicle breakdown been catered for? So lots of good sort of general questions there. There's also, this is sort of where you start to, in that ideals of safer vehicles question, can start to do these roads that cars can read style assessments. What are the vehicles of the future going to be looking for in road design and road features? How are they going to read this road? How are they going to read that, non-standard sign, and what are they going to react to? Are they going to follow out blacked out line marking? And lots of those sorts of questions. Post-crash care. Are there issues that might influence safe and efficient post-crash care in the event of a severe injury, congestion, access, stopping space? That one mainly sort of comes up around urban motorway style assessments. Emergency and medical services operate as efficiently as possible. And what's the length of time to get to injured parties? How can you get to injured parties? Are they up in the mountains or something like that? Are there ways that could be improved with improving, just the way to access it? I think there was, when the helicopter landing pads built on the Coromandel there, with this sort of stuff in mind, or trying to do that alongside all of your other initiatives. Are other road users and emergency response teams protected during a crash event? Are drivers providing correct information to address travel speeds on the approach and adjacent to the incident? And is there reliable information available via radio VMS? So yeah, again, I mean, those are often most relevant to urban motorways, but it's good to just think about that for whichever project it is. And is there provision for e-safety, safety systems on modern information and communication technology, cooperative, intelligent transport systems? And again, often limited for us within our projects to be thinking about that, but sometimes you do. We did a massive safe system assessment on a huge new tunnel, many new tunnels actually, and there was a lot of that sort of thinking and questioning, and bringing in ITS experts to advise and think about things as well with you. So you just put dot points and little comments around that. It may influence some of your scoring. It may generate some other ideas, and that you would put in your recommendations. Or it may sort of not alter things too much, but at least you're thinking through all of these. Max, anything for me?
No, all good so far, Ken.
Okay, well, we're doing well here, and it's getting us to the point where we can start explaining what people are going to need to do. But I will start by sort of showing a safe system assessment report is more than just the matrix and a list of ideas. There's a fairly standard way of doing it. We've given you an example of safe system assessment in your pack. We're giving you a template to work off, and the template is it's actually the Victorian government template, but what they've said is anybody and everybody should and could and can use this and rebrand it however you want. So it's nice. We're seeing the a lot of jurisdictions around Australia, and New Zealand seems to be generally using that as well. But you include in there, what is the type of assessment, a full or a rapid, and I will explain those differences to you next module. List the members of the team, the assessment team, any meetings and site inspection, description of the process, because it is still something that people aren't quite sure about. So there's a short sort of description of it in there, which is good. The background of the project and the context of the project. Then you put the matrix for the existing conditions and all of the designs and commentary on other safe system components. So those questions that we just went through and all your suggestions of treatments and categorize those treatments. So that's what we want to be seeing. And I thought probably, Max, at this point in time, I might bring up an actual safe system assessment, and just so people can sort of see what output could be expected. Is that all right?
Good idea. No worries.
And then I'll hand over to you to hang on, have I stopped sharing my screen?
You did.
Sorry, I got lost for a second. And then I'll hand it over to you, Max, to tell people how they find their site and do everything, and maybe even bring up the Austroads Safe System Assessment Framework, which is in the resources in Moodle or for everybody. Okay, I just grabbed one out of our system there, which
this one looks familiar, Ken.
It looks familiar, yeah. It's one of yours, Max.
There we go.
Purposely picked one that I wasn't involved in case I see something I don't like. Oh, I joke. I'm sure it'll be great.
No criticisms in the comments, please.
Okay. So I've got an executive summary, and we're not going to go through that. Okay, here we go. Straight off the bat, I can see there's some design options. There's quite a few design options there. The existing conditions, or do nothing, as Max has sort of called it here, 190. You can straight away see that option 2 is going to make things worse. So I'm not sure what they're doing there. And then you can see a nice sort of quick snapshot of what's going on. And so you can see the value of that, because we don't need to go through the 78 pages. We can kind of see what's going on here. Now, motorcyclists coming out high, they always come out high, as we talked about. A nice map here that shows sort of how it's been broken up, where the options are, what they do, and the scoring from that perspective. I do like to see a map like that to sort of gather what's going on. But let's scroll down a bit. So description of the safe system and the team that was involved. When they went out to site, at nighttime as well. Not as many nighttime inspections done with safe system assessments as compared to road safety audits, but they can be very valuable. So it's good to see. Bit of background, good bit of background here. It's a big project, isn't it? This one. Here we go. So Austroads prompts. So those were these context questions, context of the assessment, and some dot points and some answers came in there to all those questions. And then here's the scoring reference sheet. That's the one straight out of Austroads, the one that we were looking at with a 0 and a 1 and a 2 and the like. And then here we go, safe system matrices and the existing conditions. Here it is. And you can see there's a good bit of detail put into this. It's nice. Seems across the board, it's the same as a 4 there for all of the passenger vehicle, run-off road, head-on, intersection other, and pedestrians, cyclists low, motorcyclists high. Lots of dot points, things that increase and things that decrease. And again, then popping the score in. Increase, decrease, and the scores go in, and we get a total score. Then we've got a new matrices for option 2 in this case, and a different color that helps so we can clearly see the difference, and things in red are added. Things crossed out have been removed when they improve this, and we get some scores out of it. And we do this, there we go, we've got lots of matrices, and some of them have got lots of changes, it looks like. Lots of alterations. And the score again there, and some more commentary around that. This is quite, you can see this is quite an extensive assessment, which is good. A bit of commentary around some of those specific issues. And here we go. High-level comments around these prompt questions. And the recommendations. And you'll see here that the recommendations are put into primary and supporting. And here you can see that Max has done, this is applicable to option 5 and option 4. Consider installing a roundabout at the old Barnawatha Road and overpass Link Road. Okay. And that's considered a primary treatment. Now, project response here that's in blue, that is for whoever received this. So Max must have sent it, and they must have actually sent you the responses. Sometimes they don't. They don't need to, but it's very nice that they have. And you know, they might say, yep, we'll take that on, or we can't do it. In your safe system assessment exercise you're going to leave that blank. You're not going to pretend to be the project team. And so you can see there, so let's have a look here. We've got a supporting treatment. So fully controlled right turns, red arrows, is, you know, it's a really great supporting treatment, and it does a really wonderful job. It's not quite a primary, I don't think. We should check the Australia's guide on that one. I don't think it got categorized as that because it's not addressing the severity of the crash. So I would agree with this categorization. So there you go. A bit of a conclusion there. Some photos from the site and some crash history, although we're not driven by crash history, just you might pick up some insights from that. You certainly can't score based off crash history if you're thinking of that. If you're thinking, oh, likelihood, why don't we just use crash history? Well, you can't do that. There's more potential to use crash history for total scores of each of those crash types. There should be good alignment with that, but certainly not as it's apportioned to likelihood exposure. Some analysis of land use there. There you go. So that's a good. It's a good comprehensive safe system assessment right there. I like it.
Thanks, Ken. Lots of good memories.
Yeah.
Then McCoy Streets, Wodonga.
Yeah. But you can see it's worth somebody doing that level of investigation or a team doing that level of investigation independent when you're going to spend $170 million or whatever they were going to do, and like it's worth it to delve into it a bit and see if we can get better outcomes. Okay, any questions I should deal with, Max? Or actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to steal back the screen if that's all right. 3, 1. So Max is shortly going to take you through your assignment, which is going to be to do a mock safe system assessment. We trimmed it back to try to keep it within reasonable amount of time you're spending on something like this. We don't want you to do something to the extent Max had done there, and so we just want assurance that you've got that. Max is going to take you through that. But we are going to ask you to go to a site. And so I just want to ensure that you're all going to be safe Now, we've looked at all the sites. We've analysed that they can be done extremely safely. We've risk assessed the ability to do it. As long as you are sensible out there, they are extremely safe. We want you to wear your high-vis vest when you're out there. We want you to stay off the road. I mean, we do not need to measure lane widths and the like. You're getting a general feel for how the area operates, what road users are there. You might drive through it, see how it ties in, or ride through it if you wanted. Don't be a hazard yourself. So don't make people have to walk onto the road to get around you. Park safely for yourself, but also that you don't have to push cyclists into traffic or block sight distances or the like. And we have a safe work method statement, which is really what you're going to have to fill out after this session via the quiz function to say that you have read it and you will follow the actions. And they are pretty simple stuff, like don't go out there intoxicated, and don't drive for 10 hours to get there without stopping. Now, on that second one, if for some reason your site is very far away from where you want it to be, you just get back in contact with us, because these are all meant to be very close to your home or your office or whatever address you gave us. Okay, that's all from me, Max. Now you can take them all through in detail, what they have to do, where they can find the templates, where they can find the designs. Oh, we lost Max.
Thank you, Ken. I hope you can hear me. The storm has just gone overhead.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You hear me, Ken?
Got you loud and clear, Max.
Yeah, you can hear me? Okay, good. Yeah, I was just saying the storm is just overhead right now. Okay.
Right.
I'll try and go.
I think we're about to lose Max there. No, I'm going to take over, Max. So enjoy the storm.
Online. Oh no.
Enjoy the storm, Max. I'm taking over. Okay, here we go. So let's get into Moodle. Hopefully you can see my screen. And oh gosh, which course are we doing? I'm going to see all the different courses going on here. So we've got Safe System Assessment New Zealand, October, thank you. And we go down here and we find module 5, complete your safe. So this is the safe work methods statement. So you're just going to click on that and agree that you're not going to do anything crazy out there. So we go on to this one. And you can see, first of all, there that we've got lots of designs, and you're going to find your design. So let's pick a random one here. One. Let's have a look at that. So there you go. It looks like they're proposing a small roundabout in this sort of urbanish environment with some splitter island extensions. Up here you've got traffic volume, 4,000 AADT, 3% heavy vehicles, 10 cyclists, 20 pedestrians, unknown motorcycle volume. Now, you might know the area really well and go, that's not right. Well, they're there for the purposes of the assignment as an exercise, and they're not, some of them will be fabricated, so don't get too concerned. Max, you're back.
I am so sorry. It's the moderator's nightmare. As soon as I get passed over the presentation requirements, the storm hit and I lost internet. It looks like you're up and presenting the assignments, though.
Yeah, well, I was just showing the designs. So you can take it back if you want, because you've probably got the other stuff open, ready to go.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I'll let you continue.
Fingers crossed it's all smooth sailing from here. It's a bit calmer outside. So this is Moodle, hopefully all very familiar by now. We're finishing module 4 today. So you've got the module 4 quiz to do. At the end of today's session would be fantastic. And as touched on, we do have the Safe Work Method Statement, or SWMS, which we will get you to fill out. So if you just click on this one here, it'll take you to a PDF document, which you can then download. And that will look like something like this. And it's basically very, very common sense steps to ensure that you are safe when you're out on site. Things like make sure you've got your high vis on, make sure you're wearing closed-toed shoes, and yes, make sure you're not under the influence, or you're not going to create a hazard for any other vehicles. I suppose the first couple of sentences are the most critical, really, that if you are feeling unsafe or you don't feel like this is an appropriate site, just don't do it, because we don't want to put you at risk at all. So please just let us know if that's not appropriate for you to be there, and we can certainly work to find another site for you. And the same thing is if you are feeling unwell, best not to travel either. And yes, just it's a lot of common sense stuff. So please just have a flick through the Safe Work Method Statements. And what we will get you to do is within the module 5, there's also, we've set it up as a quiz, which is an agreement here. So you can click on this one. And it's just a 1-question quiz, which is just saying, I understand what the SWMS is, I will wear all my PPE, and I'll take care of myself and others and not act as a hazard or anything like that, and agree to that prior to going out on site. So that's just confirmation that you've understood everything that's required of you. It's just obviously just to give us a bit of confidence that we've managed all the risks accordingly, and if you have any issues whatsoever, please do get in touch. So those are the SWMS. Next, we'll jump into your specific site, which is pretty exciting because everyone gets their own individual site. Some are actually real designs, as in they're currently out for tender or out for community consultation or the like, and they have, they've been downloaded from the relevant authority, and others we've designed in-house just to give you something close and nearby. I did download this first one, Kennedy Road, just to give an example to what sites may look like. So I'm just going to open this up in the PDF, which looks something like this. So they're proposing a couple roundabouts at either end of Kennedy Road here, and as well as some changes to the on-street parking. They created kind of a service road as opposed to what it is now. We've got some sharrows along there, and they've also got some raised pedestrian crossing points as well across some slip lanes and some thresholds. So there's quite a lot of work proposed as part of this job here for Kennedy Road. And you'll also note that we've added in this clouded section here, which gives you some traffic volumes. And there is a fairly obvious disclaimer there saying that these are traffic volumes are provided purely for the purposes of this exercise. So they're not accurate metrics, and that's intentionally so. We're not trying to say that these are exactly how many pedestrians are within this area, because we wouldn't know that. And we're just doing it so you've got some metrics to be able to use for your safe system assessment. So every single site has their own specific metrics that we've set, and we will reference that when we are reviewing your work. So if you happen to know that, oh, Kennedy Road doesn't have 8,000, it has 12,000 per day, please just use the metrics that we provide there, because that's what we will use when we review how you've scored. So very important. The next, I'll hop back into module 5. You'll see there's two documents there to download, one being the SSA template, a Word document, and the other, the assignment graph generator. So if you download those two and just save a local copy, that'll help you out. I'll show you what the SSA template is. And this is where you will be filling in your assignment. As it states here, this is what you'll be doing. You'll be completing only the highlighted sections within this report. And this, as Ken mentioned, is taken from the Vic Roads Safe System Assessment template. So that's why you've got kind of everything. So you can potentially use this for future projects if you want to rebrand it. However, we've crossed out all the stuff that is not relevant for this particular assignment. So just to make it a little bit easier, I only need to fill out what the highlighted stuff says. So you'll see a lot of it is crossed out. We do need you to fill in who the assessment team is, and for the assessment team, it should just be yourself. It's only going to be individual assignments that we'll be looking at. So you just need to write down your name. You see all those context prompts. We're not going to get you to fill that out as part of this assignment, but just wanted to show that they do exist within this document. You need to provide just a short summary of what the design is, how things are changing, and also an assessment summary. And this will, you'll be able to do this once you've actually completed the matrices. So you might need to leave it blank when you first get started. You scroll down further and get stuck into the matrices, and then that's when you can populate this field. But you will be producing a graph that kind of look like the ones that Ken was showing before. And I'll show you exactly how to do that as well. But here we go. This is table 3. This is an example of the matrix. You'll see at the top of the columns here, we have the 7 different crash types that we've been discussing. And we've also got the 3 different risk factors: exposure, likelihood, and severity. Each of those crash types need a specific score for each of those factor types. And you'll also need a dot point. Well, what are the things that have increased the likelihood of a run-off road crash? What are the things that have decreased the likelihood of a run-off road crash? Just jot down some notes there. You know, it could be street lighting, it could be fantastic sight lines, it could be the fact that maybe in a rural area and there's not a town nearby for 2 hours, so fatigue might kick in. That might make run-off road crashes more likely. Anything that you can think of. The reason that we kind of specify to jot down all your thinking is because if you were just to give a number and just say that's a score of 2 there, there's not much justification for that now, is there? So this is just a way to back up the reason that you've said that warrants a score of 2 or something like that. I'm now going to jump into the Excel document that I said to download as well, which will look something like this. And this will basically be able to give you a nice glossy graph at the end that you can copy and paste into your report. So you can create a chart title. Everything in this orangey color, yellow-orange color, is stuff that you can fill in. So I'm just going to call this Kennedy Road, and that'll automatically populate. And then you can go across, and depending on what you've assigned within your matrix, you can fill this Excel table in as well, corresponding with those numbers that you've assigned, and you'll automatically spit out the numbers that you have. So for instance, you've said there's a high exposure, there's a high likelihood, and there's a very high severity. That will give you an existing score of 48. And you'll also see there's another table just below for the design options. So you can also say the exposure isn't going to change. It's going to be at 4. It's going to be a little bit less likely. It's now at 2. The severity is going to be the same. And you'll see that gives you your design option score as well. So that's just a really quick way to get that graph. We've already done all the formatting for you. So it spits out the numbers that you kind of need as part of these reports. And we've also included some other tabs here, not relevant for this particular assignment, but if you did want to use this in future projects, say if you were looking at 2 different design options or 3 different design options, we've just given you more tables there, so you can still use this as a resource going forward. But that's how you kind of use this assignment graph generator. If Excel is a bit confusing for you, please just get in touch. We'll try and make it as easy as possible, but it is trying to make your life a bit easier rather than having to do any of these graphs from scratch. I'll hop back into the assignment template. The thing to note is once you've done your existing conditions, so say you filled all this in, you've scored everything up, what you'll then do is you'll copy this entire matrix and paste it, and then do the review for the design option. So you're going to have 2 different matrices. You're going to have one which is existing conditions, and it'll give you this score out of 448. Then you do the matrix again. You cross out everything that's no longer relevant. So as an example, if you were doing if an intersection was uncontrolled, a T intersection, and it was becoming a roundabout, you could cross out in the existing conditions, there's uncontrolled movements allowed at this intersection. Or maybe I should have said signalized. Anyway, anything that's no longer relevant at the existing conditions to the design, you cross those out. And anything that is added as part of the design option, you can change the color of them. We generally go for a red color, but you can change it to whatever suits your style. So you're going to have two matrices, one for the existing, one for the design option. We will also get you to populate some primary treatments and some supporting treatments for consideration. This project response you see is not highlighted. Don't need to fill that in. That's just there for your information or how these things are generally presented. But yeah, we want to see some, well, what can we do to improve those scores? What can we do that would virtually eliminate the risk of certain crash types? And what can we do that will improve the level of road safety, but is not quite at that tier of those primary treatments? And then finally, for Appendix A, we've got add a photo of you at the site, which is a selfie. If you can get yourself snapped at the site or just take a selfie, that's just for us to, I suppose, be able to determine that you actually did go out on site, and also just makes a good snap. It's good for our enjoyment as we're marking these papers, so it's always good to see. And that's it for the assignment. So it's a taste of what the safe system assessments are like. And I suppose you are doing the bulk of the work, being the matrices. That's really where a lot of the time will go. But there's certainly other aspects of it which we have just crossed out to save you a bit of time. And also you may not know the project context because we've just made them up sometimes. So that's about it for the projects. I'm just thinking, I was also just going to share the safe system assessment framework. Sorry, Ken, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, just a couple of extra things on that, and a couple of questions that are coming in. So one is you don't, I'll just reiterate what Max said, don't send in the Excel. That's just there to generate a graph for you easily to paste into your Word document. You put the word, you upload the Word document. Max will show you how to do that, no doubt. The other one is, don't talk to the residents or show them ask them what they think about the plans, and or if they come out to you, which they probably will, because you know what it's like to stand in a high vis vest out there. They'll come and ask what's being planned or something like that, and just say, "Oh, just a training exercise." So, and if your site has been built, as in they've upgraded it already to the design that was there, just get in contact with us straight away and we'll get you another site. We do, sometimes we use real ones and then they get built, of course, which is good, but we haven't quite been updated. So I think we've got somebody who's already said that. And yeah, just on Max's screen, you can see there are your designs, which came in as a question again. So I think it was Angela was asking that question, which is Port Hill Road. Yep, there it is. So that would be yours, Angela. And so you just find your name there at the end, and that's the design you're doing. You're going to the site and hopefully you'll see its existing conditions won't be built yet. So then you're doing existing conditions matrix and then the updated one.
Thank you, Ken. Just got a question there from Helen as well, just asking what the pink blobs are. We didn't include a legend on this particular design, but yes, you are correct. They're kind of like concrete traffic islands, splitter islands, so please take them as raised surfaces. Everything else should be identified through text boxes and the like, but hopefully that's a little bit clearer. I was also just going to share the safe system assessment framework. We've got a few questions within that webinar just about where we can look at some examples for exposure, likelihood and severity. everything that we've covered basically so far within the webinar can be found within this document. We just go into a little bit more detail. But if I just wanted to jump into this section, 4.6. So for those that were asking, there's all these tables which basically specify what treatments could be put in place and if they're considered primary or they're considered supporting, and also what do they influence? Is it exposure, is it likelihood, or is it severity? So you've kind of got everything that you need to determine those criteria within these tables. And these tables are also split up into the different crash types as well. So say, for instance, your matrix is getting a very, very high run-off road crash risk score, and it's something that you want to work on. You want to provide a primary treatment to really bring those scores down. You'd look at, well, what are the safe system options here for primary, and you see there's flexible roadside and medium barriers, very high quality compacted roadside surface, okay, and very low speed environment or a speed limit. This is the one that I would generally include within the SSA recommendations, and you'll see that affects the severity. So it's just spelling everything out, but this is a really, really good resource. As I know, if you haven't seen the exposure likelihood or severity thinking before, or you haven't heard of the primary treatments, supporting treatments, this is a really good way that quickly categorizes everything. So just to clarify, the primary are the top row, and supporting is, for some reason, broken up into these two categories. So it's got a yellow and an orange. So you can just take either of those as supporting treatments. And then there's always these other considerations as well, which you can include if you want, but is not really required as part of this assignment.
Sorry, Max, can you just show the front cover of the report again? I just got a question on what this document is. So this is the Austroads Safe System Assessment Framework. This is the document on how to do a safe system assessment, and the jurisdictions have their guidelines underneath. It's available on Austroads website free, but we've also put it into your memory stick in the resource documents. We put it into Moodle, so you know it's everywhere. And if you can't find it for some reason, just shoot through an email. We'll send it to you.
That's it. And I was just going to follow up on actually submitting the assignment as well. So still within this module 5, complete your safe system assessment. You scroll down to the bottom and you can click on add submission, and that will prompt you to add your own file, and then we can go ahead and review that and provide you a grade as well as some feedback. But that's how everything is completed. It says we've got a due date of Friday, the 12th of November. So that's 2 weeks today. Yep. And we have our next webinar 1 week today. So,
yeah. So the next webinar is a great opportunity to ask some questions about your assessment, so others can get some good info there. Yeah, if you've got a question, probably others will come up with that as well. So please come prepared with that. So it is worth starting, getting a run on this next week and being ready for that session. Now, there's a couple of people, Max, I think we're going to need to get new sites too. Somebody's site's a bit far away and one of them's been built. So you want to get those people to email, or is it okay that you just note it down from the chat?
Yep, I'll just take note in the chat and we'll follow that
up. Good, thank you. And you've got on screen there where that safe system assessment.
So that was that document there that I was showing before, saved in the reference documents and resources, very first one. So feel free to download that.
Okay, so looking pretty good there. I think we've covered most things off. Yep, so we're getting some requests for other sites. Yeah, so if it's a location thing or it's been built, we'll absolutely get you another site. If you open it up and you just don't like it, we probably won't give you another site. You're gonna have to deal with it. But certainly location-wise, we were just allocated an address for you and gave a site accordingly, but can do that. I think there's now 3 now, Max.
Yep, all good. I'll
All right.
be in touch.
Well, yeah. Okay, you're into the meat of it. Now, of course, we are available to help you through this if you come up with any challenges. If you're not feeling comfortable with it, get in contact with Max or myself. We'll book in a one-on-one Zoom chat with you. We'll talk it through. We want to ensure that you understand that you're able to do this and repeat it for future ones. Next session, we'll have a good chat about sort of the policies around safe system assessments, when they're best done, and a few sort of broader things. But yeah, for now, we'll give you some time to finish off the quiz for this session, have a look at that SWIMS, and start getting your head around your safe system assessment, or knock off early and enjoy the weekend.
Yes, have a great weekend, everyone, and look forward to chatting next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Bye.